Hey guys, it's Allie with Cruise Blog. Today I'm going to be sharing my experiences sailing on the oldest and smallest cruise ships from Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Line. I'm going to be comparing these experiences and telling you exactly how these cruises went. Let's get into it. As you know, modern cruise ships are built to be bigger and better than ever before. By today's standards, cruise ships are essentially floating resorts that can hold upwards of 10,000 people on board when you include crew members and passengers. Because of this, most people prefer to sail on a newer cruise ship. These vessels have much more to do during your cruise, and they also feature many modern amenities. A lot of people will scoff at the thought of sailing on a cruise line's oldest ship. While I love all kinds of cruising, I find myself sailing on older and smaller ships more often than not. To start, these cruise ships typically sail interesting itineraries because some ports have size restrictions, which can limit the bigger vessels from docking in those ports. Also, older and smaller ships tend to be more affordable, and I love a good cruise deal. Within the last year, I sailed on Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Line's oldest and smallest ships. I'll be honest, cruising on these two old ships, it was a far from glamorous or luxurious experience, but I still had a great time without the flashiness of a bigger, newer cruise ship. Here's how my experiences sailing on the oldest and smallest cruise ships for two of the most popular cruise lines in the world compared to each other. So last summer, I sailed on Carnival's oldest and smallest ship, Carnival Ecstasy, for a 4-night cruise, and I had very low expectations. For just $519 total, my sister and I booked a last-minute cruise on Carnival Ecstasy. But I quickly learned that there was a catch. We would be sailing on the oldest and smallest ship in Carnival's fleet. This cruise ship debuted in 1991, which made her 31 years old while we sailed. Even worse, Carnival Ecstasy was only a few weeks from being retired and scrapped to pieces, so that probably explained why we were able to get a great price. I had not sailed on Carnival Cruise Line in nearly a decade, so I was honestly a little bit nervous about what this experience would entail. Carnival is known for having some of the most wild cruises at sea, and it's a party from the minute you step on board a Carnival cruise ship. The cruise line even brands itself as having the most fun ships at sea, and while non-stop partying is not my vibe, I went into this experience with an open mind. I anticipated that the ship would look aged, outdated, and probably very rusty. In a short sailing over the weekend, I also expected that our cruise would feel probably like a party the entire time. To my surprise, the cruise was better than I could have expected though. While the ship was definitely outdated, I was pleased to see how Carnival had outfitted this older ship with more modern amenities. Even on the smallest and oldest cruise ship, there was plenty to do on board to keep us busy, let loose, and have some fun. And just a few weeks ago, I cruised on board Royal Caribbean's oldest and smallest ship, Grandeur of the Seas. So fast forward to this summer, and my sister and I were looking to take another cheap weekend getaway cruise. Cruising during hurricane season is normally a great, albeit a little risky, opportunity to find an affordable cruise rate. We ended up finding a 4-night sailing on board Grandeur of the Seas for $932, which was almost double the price of last summer's dirt cheap cruise on Carnival Ecstasy. However, Royal Caribbean is known for being a little bit more pricey than Carnival, and cruise fares in general are trending higher this year compared to last year. Grandeur of the Seas is currently the oldest and smallest ship sailing for Royal Caribbean. Built in 1996, she is only a few years younger than Carnival Ecstasy, but virtually identical in size at 72,000 gross tons. Although Grandeur of the Seas is not retiring anytime soon, Royal Caribbean was planning to sell the ship in 2021 before the pandemic struck, and now the ship is part of the fleet for the foreseeable future. After our unexpectedly positive experience on board Carnival Ecstasy, I was eager to see what Royal Caribbean's oldest and smallest cruise ship had to offer. I've sailed much more with Royal Caribbean, so my expectations were a little bit higher than my Carnival Ecstasy cruise. We ended up having a wonderful time on Grandeur of the Seas, despite the ship's age and size. The ship was well maintained and clean, and we also received attentive service on board. So first, let's compare the food. When comparing food, Grandeur of the Seas had excellent specialty dining on board, while Carnival Ecstasy had better casual eateries. When it comes to Royal Caribbean and Carnival, both of these cruise lines have great dining options on board. I'd argue that Royal Caribbean has better specialty dining on their ships, while Carnival really shines with its quick, casual dining options on board. This proved to be the case while sailing on the oldest and smallest ships for each cruise line. I was super impressed with Carnival Ecstasy as she featured some of Carnival's signature dining options like Guy's Burger Joint and Blue Iguana Cantina. We also loved Carnival's Pizza Pirate, the Sea Day Brunch, and the Sandwich Shop. This does not even include the complimentary food that we ate in the dining room in the Lido Marketplace buffet. Even though Carnival Ecstasy was the oldest and smallest ship in Carnival's fleet, I appreciated the efforts made to keep the ship feeling fresh with these modern offerings. On our short cruise, we actually ran out of time to try everything, however, there was no specialty dining options on board. And in comparison, Grandeur of the Seas only had the buffet, the main dining room, Park Cafe, and Cafe Latitude for dining options. And I would barely consider Cafe Latitude as an option, as you could really only get a few little snacks there. On the other hand, Park Cafe had pizza and sandwiches, so we mostly dined in the buffet and the main dining room. However, Grandeur of the Seas had multiple specialty dining options on board, including Chop's Grill, Giovanni's Italian Table, and Izumi Sushi. We had a wonderful dinner at Giovanni's on the first night of our cruise. I love to splurge on board my cruises with a night or two in specialty restaurants, as I enjoy the quieter ambiance and the higher quality food and service, especially on the first night because boarding a ship can be a little chaotic. Both of these ships had their own dining highlights, with Carnival having better casual food and Royal Caribbean offering specialty dining. I do wish Royal Caribbean would consider adding new dining options on their oldest ships, which would help with crowding in the limited options. Similarly, Carnival's oldest and smallest ship had more bars on board, while Royal Caribbean's had limited bar service, which led to long lines. Carnival Cruise Line has always considered itself to be the most fun cruise line. Even when Carnival Ecstasy was built, Carnival's onboard experience was centered around partying and letting loose. And in contrast, Royal Caribbean's onboard experience has always been a little bit more upscale and subdued. Both of these short cruises, though, attracted a party crowd, meaning the bars were always very busy. However, we found that Grandeur of the Seas only had a few bars open at any time, and because of this, we constantly had to wait in line to get a drink and deal with the crowds. The bartenders seemed to be having a tough time keeping up with everybody wanting a drink. On the other hand, Carnival Ecstasy was better equipped to handle a drinking crowd. We never had to wait too long in line to grab a drink. Whether we wanted a poolside cocktail from Red Frog Tiki Bar or a science-inspired drink from the Alchemy Bar, our bar service was fast and easy. Now let's move on to entertainment. Royal Caribbean's entertainment was slightly better than Carnival's, but neither ships offered spectacular options. When you sail on a very old and small cruise ship, there will inherently be fewer entertainment options. Additionally, these ships were designed in a very different era of cruising, where entertainment was much more simple. On Carnival Ecstasy, we attended most of the headliner productions in the theater. The first night, I felt like I was watching a high school performance, if I am being honest. The production clearly had a lower budget, so the performers did the best they could with what they had. The other evenings, we decided to go to the Punchliner Comedy Club and the Marriage Game Show. Comparatively, Grandeur of the Seas had similar entertainment options, which was likely due to the similar size and age of the ship. I found the main production shows in the theater to be a little bit higher quality than what we had on Carnival Ecstasy, and in addition, we also enjoyed the comedian one night and a vocal impersonator the other evening, but neither of these ships had entertainment that left me speechless. However, I did prefer Carnival Ecstasy's onboard activities and events compared to Grandeur of the Seas. Although both of these old and small ships had plenty to do, I found myself partaking in more activities and events during my Carnival cruise. On the other hand, I relaxed a lot more on my cruise while sailing on Grandeur of the Seas because not many of the events and activities sounded very enticing. For example, many of the trivia games were appealing to my sister and me because of their relevant topics on Carnival. We also attended karaoke and the Piano Man sing-alongs in the evening, and I appreciated that Carnival's events were kept to a prompt 30-minute show, so we were able to attend more activities in the evenings. Overall, the activities and events on board were limited due to the ship's size. Newer cruise ships have an endless list of things to do on board, which can be very busy. And in my opinion, Carnival did a great job offering fun and exciting events on Carnival Ecstasy, while Royal Caribbean's cruise was just a little bit more low-key. For accommodations, our stateroom on Grandeur of the Seas was a bit more modern and better maintained compared to Carnival Ecstasy. However, both cabins were very clean, which to me is most important. For both of these short cruises, we stayed in an inside cabin guarantee, which was of course the cheapest option. On Carnival Ecstasy, we found our room to be modestly sized, but very outdated. We only had a single outlet to share in the room, which was very difficult for us. And the bathroom was probably the biggest disappointment as it featured blue and squishy flooring. The toilet was so close to the wall that we nearly had to sit sideways. There was also very little counter space, and this bathroom absolutely reflected the ship's age. When we sailed on Grandeur of the Seas, we were amazed that our cabin did not feel like a 26-year-old cabin. While the decor was definitely outdated, we had 2 outlets to share along with 2 European plugs. The room felt spacious and well maintained. The bathroom also looked updated with white flooring and light woodwork from the sink area. There was also space for us on the sink to store our cosmetics, which we didn't have in Carnival's cabin. Sadly, though, the shower was very oddly shaped and it had a clingy shower curtain, which was our least favorite part. The biggest differences, though, between Carnival's dated ship was the design and maintenance compared to Grandeur of the Seas' classic and sleek design. While both of these ships were built in the 90s, the shift in design was apparent. However, Carnival Ecstasy had one of the worst designs of any cruise ship I've sailed on before. Carnival's cruise ships are designed often to be very flashy and bright, but Carnival Ecstasy's design was borderline gaudy for me. It was difficult to navigate the ship, even though it was very small. We found ourselves hitting dead ends and constantly looking at the deck maps to figure out where we wanted to go, and Carnival Ecstasy felt very dark and cramped with its low ceilings and nightclub vibes. On the contrary, Grandeur of the Seas has truly aged beautifully, I think. The ship has a lot of natural light thanks to the large glass panels across the ship, especially in the center atrium. It was also apparent that Royal Caribbean has prioritized maintaining Grandeur of the Seas. We saw very little rust throughout Royal Caribbean's oldest and smallest ship, and the ship was in good condition for its age, and this was a contrast to Carnival Ecstasy. Since the ship was so close to retirement, this might have contributed to Carnival Ecstasy's condition. We found many instances of rust, some shattered mirrors, and even a window with duct tape. At the end of the day, though, I firmly believe that you can have a great time on any cruise ship regardless of the size or age. Both of these cruises with Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Line were fun and lively with a more party-like atmosphere. Any weekend cruise is more likely to attract a party crowd, especially with many groups and bridal parties traveling together. Grandeur of the Seas' sleek design has aged better in comparison to Carnival Ecstasy's gaudy nightclub design. In fact, I think Carnival's ship design overall is less progressive than Royal Caribbean, and my experiences on board reflected this trend. This was the biggest difference between the two ships, as these small and old vessels had similar onboard vibes, entertainment offerings, and activities available. Despite Carnival Ecstasy's age, though, I was most impressed by how many signature Carnival dining options were on board. I do wish Royal Caribbean would prioritize adding more modern venues like El Loco Fresh or the Lime and Coconut Bar to their oldest ships to jazz up the experience. Age is just a number, though, especially when a cruise ship is well maintained. Most cruise lines prioritize upkeep for their older ships, and there are many great advantages to sailing on an older and smaller ship. You'll not only save a lot of money, but you'll also be more likely to visit off-the-beaten-path locations on a smaller ship as well. All right, everybody, that's all we have for today. Comment below if you've ever sailed on one of these ships and what your experiences were like. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified every time we have a new video. And until next time, everybody, happy cruising.